What's going on, everyone? In today's video, we're going to look at some of the books that I've sold on Amazon and determine whether or not we should buy them and resell them again. In other words, whether or not we should turn the book into a replen. Now, if you've been watching the channel for a while, you know that I do online book arbitrage, which means I buy books on Amazon and then resell them on Amazon. And the reason for that is I'm a father, I'm a husband, I don't really have time to go to thrift stores or library sales, but I still want to flip books on Amazon because it's an amazing opportunity. And you can actually buy books directly on Amazon because there's over 100 million books on Amazon. There's always a few thousand of them undervalued, enough to the point where you can buy them now and then just resell them for what they historically sell for. In other words, they're just undervalued. And so what we're going to do is go through some of the books that I've actually sold in the last few days and decide whether or not this is a book that I want to buy again and again and again and sell again and again into the future. So for example, we're here looking at a construction book. This sold for $47 one day ago. And so now we need to decide, is this a book we're going to buy again in the future to sell on Amazon? Now, when I open this on Amazon, you can see that I did actually buy this on February 20th. Of 2024. You can see that this came from Thrift Books for $13.76. And we sold this book for $47. So we made a $14 profit, over 100% ROI on this book. And so obviously we want to know, is this a book that we should buy and sell again and again? Well, this particular book is a little bit weird because if you look at the Keepa graph, it looks pretty much worthless. In other words, the lowest used price of this book generally hangs out between $10 to $12. And there's really not that many sales rank drops. And generally, when you sell a book like this for $47 or like 4 times what it's actually worth, like what its intrinsic value is worth, you've done something called exploit the buy box or exploit what's called the prime gap. Now, we obviously know that there are, tons of Amazon Prime customers. And so in this case, the prime gap just refers to the fact that, hey, someone decided to pay way more for this book than they really needed to because they could find it much cheaper. But the reason why I had this book in stock was because I had sold it in the past. And if you look at this Keepa graph further back into its history, this is a book that has at times sold for, in the 40s to 50s, even up into the 80s. And if I actually look at my orders here using SellerAmp, you can see that I've sold this book a number of times. I mean, just this year, I've sold this book, 5 times? For 59, 59, 59, 55, 47. And so even though this book's Keepa graph over the last year looks pretty terrible, and I have exploited the buy box, the prime gap for every single one of those sales, I'm going to continue to do that because of the fact that it keeps working for this particular book. Now, I want you guys to know that this is not normally a strategy that I employ or that I suggest. Normally, you want to buy books below their market value and then resell them for what they're actually worth. In this case, I'm making money off of exploiting the prime gap, but these sort of patterns are things that you should take advantage of if they do occur. And again, that sort of pattern doesn't normally hold true on most books. For this book, for whatever reason, it does hold true. Now you can see if you look at the offers here, we can actually pick this book up for a price that's very similar to what we bought it for. Like in this case, we can essentially buy it for maybe even a little bit cheaper than what we bought it for in the past from HBP Red for, a good condition copy. Now, what I'm also going to do is actually check my inventory just to make sure that I don't have another copy in my inventory. And the reason why I'm going to do that again is just due to the fact that this is a book that really shouldn't be selling for that much money, but it has repeatedly sold for that over and over again. So I always want to be kind of one copy in stock because if it's just going to keep happening, then I might as well just keep replenishing it. But on the same time, I don't want to buy a bunch of copies and send them in Amazon because I know that I'm really making money off exploiting this kind of prime gap feature, this buy box gap feature, rather than actually doing it the way that I should be doing, which is buying the book undervalued and selling it for what it's worth. Now, it actually does look like I have one more in stock there and it's at $48. So I'll just leave that there. If that copy sells, then I actually will probably go back and buy one copy to replenish it. All right, so the next book that we're going to look at is actually a dud. It's a book that did not sell very well. And this happens a small percentage of the time. It happens in any business where you might buy a book that it just doesn't pan out. But here it is. This book sold for $11.98. When we actually look here on the Amazon listing, we actually bought this last year in March in 2023, and we bought it for a total of $12.95. And so it sat there for a long time and never sold. Now you can see why I bought this. I mean, if you look at the Keepa graph, basically all of the history in the past showed that this book was selling in the 40s up into the 90s. And for whatever reason, even though the offer count didn't really spike, it just didn't do well. It just didn't perform well. And now it's just really come down in price. So I decided just to dump it because for whatever reason, it's just not performing well anymore. And that's okay. I'm going to lose money on this book. And that's okay because the overwhelming majority of books that I buy do perform very well and actually make quite a bit of money. So this is a book that we're obviously not going to replen because of the fact that we lost money on it, even though, it's at a price that we can pick it up, below what we bought it for in the past. All right, the next book we're going to look at is actually a teacher's edition book. And I love teacher's edition books because of the fact that they just sell for great money and I just do really well with them. So here's a book that sold for $99. And if you go and look at the Keep snapshot down there, it looks like its current price is about $34. And so clearly, if we can buy for 34 and then sell for 99, then that's a big enough margin to make some pretty good money. But the question here is it actually a good idea to still buy this book, even though we just sold it? And so I guess what we can do is look at the Keepa graph and determine, do we think this book is at a great price? And yeah, you can see it's actually at a really good price. It's at its kind of lowest price over the last year. It's sold, in the high 30s. It's sold in the 40s. And, at the beginning of the year, it's selling in the 70s. If you go back further in time, clearly this is a high school teacher's edition book. It sells very well in July and August for in the 70s and 80s and even up to 100s. And maybe it didn't sell for as much this year because of the fact that the offer count's a little bit higher, but that's also why the prices are down a little bit. So in this case, if we actually look at what I bought it for, looks like we bought this for $43.25. And so at $43 buy cost and a $99 sales price, we made a $30 profit, 70% ROI. And again, we can pick this book up again for $34. So it looks like there's an acceptable copy and a good, 2 good condition copies. So in this case, I'm obviously going to want to prioritize the books that are in good condition. Even this person doesn't have great feedback. They're at 86%. Probably what's going to happen is that this book might just come in acceptable condition. I would still, though, consider, hey, this is a book that is for high school. It's, not necessarily like a very rare niche book where the condition probably matters a bunch. So in this case, I'd have no problem buying from that seller, even though their feedback rating is 86%. Now, the last thing I'm going to do is actually just make sure to check my inventory to see if I have any other copies in stock. And it looks like I actually have no copies in stock. So it looks like I've potentially sold this 4 times. Let's go and look at the orders page. Yeah, and if we go back a little bit further in time, it does look like I've sold it for 110, sold it for 110, sold it for 108. And yeah, it looks like I basically sold all of them, right? And then the most recent one was just for $99. So I've sold basically out of all these copies, and I'm going to go ahead and actually just buy both of those copies. I mean, I could even potentially buy the acceptable copy because then I would have 3 in stock, but I'm definitely going to buy those 2 copies and replen them. And the cool thing is I'll actually be picking this book up for a little bit cheaper price, which is great. Now, remember, the reason why replens are so important in this business is because you've already put all the hard work up front to find a profitable book, and to be successful with it means that you actually did a good job. You actually found a book that was undervalued enough that you could buy it on Amazon from the comfort of your home, not having to go anywhere, and sell it on Amazon to make money. So don't forget about the book. Make sure you can buy it and sell it again in the future. A really, really easy way to track it is just using the Keepa Track Product feature. You can click that track product button up there, and you can go ahead and track it for a certain price. Looks like I'm tracking it for $34, including shipping, but maybe I should arguably be tracking it for a little bit more based upon what I've sold it for in the past. But that's a really easy way to do it. Once you get more advanced, you can actually build what's called a Replens list, and that'd be a good way to keep track of all the books that you sold profitably. Now we're going to scroll down the next book, Writing and Grammar, another teacher edition book. This sold for $25 just 2 days ago. So again, the question is, should we replen this? The first thing we're going to do is just figure out what we bought it for and what we sold it for. So it looks like we bought it for $7.86, and we again sold it for a total of $25.51. So we made just a little bit of money, and really not that much. $3 profit, 39% ROI. Again, we never touched the book though. It went right to a prep center. Prep center sent it to an Amazon warehouse. We sold it. We made $3.13 without needing to do anything. Just literally click buy it now. But the question is this a book we should replen? Now, if we look, this book clearly has a very distinct historical pattern where basically every July and August it spikes really high. And for whatever reason, just this July, August, it didn't really spike in use price. And that's probably because maybe the offer count was just a little bit higher than normal. And so I would still consider this a great buy at what I picked it up for. It just didn't really spike as high as I thought it would. Now, so, I would say this one is probably still a book that I'd pick up though, because of the fact that its offer count is actually going down. And I think there's still some potential with this. Now, obviously it's not at a price where I can pick it up for $7.86 anymore. So this is again, another book that I would recommend tracking, and a book that could do well in the future. All right, so this next book here, Food, Medication, Interactions, we sold this for $29.99. And so again, here's the listing there. And it looks like we bought this for $9.08. And so if we put $29.99, again, not a book which we made a lot of money on. I mean, we made $6.97, 76% ROI. But again, I never needed to do anything. I literally just logged on my computer, found the book, pressed buy it now. It showed up at an Amazon warehouse. It sold. Amazon's cutting me a check and I'm making money. So that's what's so awesome about doing this, is that you can do it at any time from anywhere, whenever you want. So it's really cool. Now the question is, again, is this a book that's going to be a replen, or is this a book that we just kind of forget about? Well, the last year doesn't really look that great. I mean, it looks like the lowest use price has been as high as maybe $29 there in the beginning. It's kind of just steadily, crept down to like $10 or less. It's now at a purchase price, which is basically right on par, maybe a little slightly more expensive than what we bought it for the first time. And the question is, if we looked further back into history, is this a book that maybe is just performing poorly this year? Has it performed better in the past? Is our perception that it's going to turn around? I mean, it looks like it can easily sell for $30 or more in the past when you look at it. One thing that I immediately want to do is go, hey, do I have any more inventory of this in stock? Because then certainly I wouldn't buy another copy. It looks like I do have one here that's actually reserved at $29. And yeah, so I mean, this is a book that, potentially I could buy another copy of. I would say if I were to buy another copy, it'd only just be one. There's also no prime sellers right now, so that's definitely an advantage. Still not a book that really excites me too much, but it has a little bit of potential. The next book we're going to look at is this book called The Armor of God. It's actually a Bible study book. It's sold for $38. You can see I actually bought this on October of 2023, so it looks like it sat for a while, but I bought it for $8.44, sold for $38. So we made a $15 profit, a 220% ROI. I'm more than happy to wait on this book for over a year. Like, even if I showed the long-term storage fees, like, it doesn't really make too much of a difference when you're working with margins that are that high. And remember, your alternative, if you think of investing, is to put it in the S&P 500 and get 7 or 8% per year. That means after 365 days, get 7 or 8%, return on your investment. Or you could just sit it in a book that has the potential to make you well more, in terms of ROI for that. So that's why I think of kind of buying these books as almost like as an investment portfolio, like buying books that can give me a better return than the S&P 500. So in any case, we bought this for $7, sold for $38. If you look at the Keepa graph, this is a book that you can just see how it's used offer count down here, how it just ebbs and flows like crazy. So this is a book that just sells a ton. And, you can even see how that used price gets really high at those periods of time when the book is selling, significantly. You can look further back in time and see there's just a bunch of the used price going up and down, and there's just a bunch of the used offer count here just going up and down, up and down. So when this book starts selling, it's going to start selling a lot, and a lot of copies are going to go off, meaning that, there's a bunch of opportunity to sell this book for a lot of money. Now, I sold mine as high as $38, which is kind of crazy. Currently, the used price of this book is $14. So I wouldn't definitely wouldn't pick it up for that. But I would say anytime this book is probably under $8, I'm picking this book up, because even if you sell this book for $25, you're still making pretty good money. And this is a book that would be a replen that you could buy again and again. And, with the sales rank of this book being so great, you could probably sell this book easily 50 times in a year. It's just, can you pick the book up 50 times per year for under $8? So, this is a book I'd probably consider something like a $200 profit book per year, as long as you're picking up a bunch of copies when this book gets really cheap. Now, the last book we're going to look at before we end the video is Trader Vic's Bartender's Guide Revised. Looks like it's not going to be a college textbook. We sold it for $89.99. Looks like we bought this on August 8th, which is actually really not that long ago. We paid $37.95 for it. So if we go and put in our $89.99 sales price, we made $29 profit, 76% return on investment. Again, never touched the book. Don't know I can take a look at the picture and kind of guess what it's about, but never needed to open the package, inspect its condition, do any of that. Literally went to a prep center, right to an Amazon warehouse, was live for sale on Amazon. Someone decided to buy it. We made $29 profit, all from, the seat from my desk here. I probably bought this at midnight. And so it's awesome that you can make $29 profit with just a single book. But the question again is this a book we would want to buy? Because of the fact that its used price right now is only slightly higher than what we've actually sold it for. If you look at this particular Keepa graph over the last year, its lowest used price has kind of hung out right around like $40, which tells me that, yeah, it's a book that definitely holds value. Definitely exploited the buy box here a little bit, if you would consider its price in the last 6 months. But the previous 6 months before that, looks like the used price was in the 80s and 90s. And if you go back further into 2022, it looks like it's always hung out in the 80s. So that's probably why I priced it at $89.99, because it has had historical sales at a price that high. Now, I think I've actually sold this book more than once. And if we look at the orders page, it looks like we have sold this twice for $90 and then $89. So the question for me is, do I have any copies in stock here? So let's go to the inventory page on Amazon. It looks like I only had 2 copies and they both sold out. By the way, this is a third-party, software called SellerAmp. It makes a lot of things easier with this business. There's a profit calculator. There's a one-click sort of export of data to a spreadsheet, which is nice. You can also, look at the orders page and your managed inventory page. You guys want to support the channel? Feel free. There's a link down below. You guys can support the channel. I get a small kickback. It's not necessary, but it's nice. And at scale, once you get bigger, it definitely, is a time saver. And, one thing I've learned over time is that time is money and money is time. They're essentially the same thing. So in the beginning, if you can't afford it, then you don't need it. But eventually you get to the point where it's like you should start saving your time if you've got money. And so I would definitely recommend it. But in this case, $41, would I recommend buying it? Well, let's see. There's a good copy. Friends of the public library, that's usually a good sign. Usually those types of sellers do really well. And so I'd buy probably just this one copy here for $38. Now this book, no dust jacket, but clean, crisp pages. I probably still would avoid it, even though it probably is not in bad condition, but I'd probably avoid that one. But yeah, basically I'm going to go and throw this one up here at, if I were to buy it at, let's see, $41.99, I'd be throwing it up there at $89.99 again. I'd likely sell it in the next 6 months. Again, make a 60% return on my money without needing to do anything. Remember, click buy it now, goes to a prep center, goes to Amazon. Someone buys it on Amazon. Amazon does the customer fulfillment. They deal with all the customer issues, the returns. And all we do is collect a paycheck. So it's a really cool, really awesome, thing that you can do on the side, especially if you are, somebody who works a 9-to-5 job, or you're, a mom or dad and you have kids and you can only do this at nighttime. You can do whatever you want. So that's why I like doing it. And hopefully you guys found some value in this video. If you guys have any other, comments or questions, leave them down below. If you like the video, then hit the like button, consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Goodbye.